Welcome to another exciting episode of the Million Dollar Peddlers. I'm Papergoy.
And I'm Mr. Magazine.
And it's the Hump Day Happy Hour Salute. And today I had a fireball. Mr. Magazine had a fireball. And Mr. Magazine had a fireball for our great guest today, primetime treasure hunter. Y'all know him. Y'all love him. Put your hands together.
All right, sit down, everyone. Sit down.
Everybody hit their head, hurt their back. We definitely want to thank Dom for coming on the show. Definitely do appreciate it. We're going to do as I was mentioning to him before the show, we're going to do a quick little truncated version of our regular show, include him in our usual nonsense. And then we got some hard-hitting questions for you, Dom. Are you ready?
No holds barred.
Do you swear to tell the truth, the whole truth, and nothing but the truth? So help you God?
I do.
All righty. Nice. And we're going to say hi to who's here, and then we're going to get started.
All right. First out of the box, the Marvelous Metals in the house. How's it going? Is the doggo there, too?
Is Daisy there?
Daisy's actually upstairs. She's recovering from, we found a tick on her today, which was engorged. And so we had to go into emergency removal mode. Fortunately, we got it off, and she seems okay. But it was pretty gross.
Did you do it yourselves, or?
Yeah, like Mrs. Primetime found it, and it was right by the side of her face, and so I went up to it, and I just pulled it out, got all the legs and everything, and put it in a bag, and then Mrs. Primetime, who happens to be a nurse, tended to her and got her, back to it. So
nice. You probably saved yourself $1,000 by doing that.
Yeah, probably.
Wow. So if I ever go hiking and find a chick, I know where I'm going.
Yeah, just call Miss Primetime.
Off the cliff. All right, we got nice Nanette's in the house. How's it going?
And she skipped her whatnot just to see.
Right.
Dom.
Oh, well, I'm honored. And Nanette, in honor of you, I have brought my Dom Father cup that you got me. So there you go. I brought that tonight because I figured you'd be here. So thank you very much. Shout out to Nanette for that.
Nice. Good. Obviously, popular prime times in the house. Thank you for coming. Awesome antiquarians in the house. Must be the only thing Daisy doesn't do. Well, it's all right. Marvelous Michael's here. Ferocious Feral Girls in the house. Super Singing's in the house. How's it going? Marvelous, say it.
Moving on. 395.
Moving on, yep.
Moving on up to the east side.
We have Marvelous Michael is still here. Super Sandy's in the house. Delightful Dawn. Thank God she's
here.
She's the
Hi,
best.
Dawn.
Cool Christopher's in the house.
Oh, Christopher says hi to you, Dom.
Hey, what's up, Chris?
Don't want to say hi to us.
What's going on, Chris?
Jazzy Jim's here. Super See the Lights. Stupendous Steve is in the house. And I think we're ready to rock and roll.
All right. One other quick thing, which we told them about just before showtime. When we get to the rambling story of the week, it's going to be a doozy this week. Among other things that happened, my air conditioning is out. It's about 90 degrees here. So we are basically sitting in the jungles of Rochester. So if you see us using the towel, drinking more water than usual, running off camera to grab more water, it's 90 degrees and humid.
And we're going to get some lemonade or something.
Need something or other.
Refreshing drink.
Yeah.
All right, we're going to head on into the normal show. We always start this out, Dom. I know you've watched a number of our episodes before, but we always talk about sales first. So we're going to open the door to you first. How are your sales?
Sales are doing good. I mean, they're maintaining themselves pretty well. I'm pretty happy. I mean, part of that is because I've really, and I'm sure we'll talk about this a little bit later, but I've really doubled down on eBay more over the last several months. And so, I've had a mixture of some high sales and then a mixture of my, regular, like moderately price sales. But the highlight just the other day, actually, within a few hours of listing it, was Marvel Universe 1990 Series 1 trading cards by Impel, a sealed box. I wound up getting 4 of them this weekend, and so I listed the first one, sold for $700, literally within hours. So then I put the second one up, and it already has 5 watchers. So I'm hoping that brings, $2,800 off of those 4 boxes alone.
Great.
Wow. Yep. Now, other than eBay, I know you do a little bit over on Etsy. Is there anywhere else that you're selling at?
We sell a little bit on Facebook Marketplace. So, for example, just today, Mrs. Primetime had found in the neighborhood a nice old coat rack that was being discarded, a wooden coat rack. So she got it for free. We do some of that as well. Brought it back, took the pictures, put it on Facebook Marketplace, and sold it for $50. So,
Nice.
so we do some of that too for some of those bigger items as well. It's not a major focus for us,
Oh,
but we dabble in that here and there.
You
So
make $1,000 a year or something like that off of that. Nothing wrong with that. A little
yeah,
extra.
yeah, it could add up depending on how much you want to focus on it. So yeah.
How about you, Mr. Magazine? How are your sales?
Well, I'm going to start with Amazon. Amazon's been steady, Freddy. Can't complain there. We got a ton of listings up. Website's doing well. DVD site's doing well. eBay, I'm not doubling down on eBay. I'm actually splitting eBay. I'm splitting eBay in half because sales are putrid and I can't take it anymore. I'm sick of giving my good stuff away cheap. I'm sick of the middle of the road stuff not selling and only garbage selling. So we're taking my listers off eBay and we're putting them on other platforms right now.
Wow.
Yep, gotta do what I gotta do.
And same out.
Oh, and I can't forget, still I'm not listed on Whatnot. So still 0 sales on Whatnot because I refuse to sell on that platform.
And as usual, out to the feed as well. How's your sales doing? eBay's okay for me. I cannot complain, especially with the holiday weekend, and that's the excuse of the week. We always have an excuse for why sales are bad, Dom. And I think the holiday weekend is our excuse for this a week over here. Amazon's holding steady. I mean, everything's holding steady for me. Did end up moving 2 items on Etsy in the last week, so sales are just kind of for the holiday week. I actually did better than I thought that I would. Let's put it that way. Hot out, but I've got my Speedos on. What a treat for
Good
late
for you.
night.
Awesome. Eric's in the house. All right. Jay-Z John bought a video game for $1, sold for 100. Hey, can't argue with that.
That's a nice little return.
Yeah.
Sweet.
Little return. Listing more often. Yep. No, that definitely does make the difference. No doubt all about that.
Cool. Kelly's in the house.
130% in June
Wow.
compared to last June. Whoa.
Nice. Can't argue with that.
I need those numbers. Crazy there. So over the weekend, we're grateful for the sales we had. Yep. And again, it was the holiday weekend, so I think that accounts for a lot of that.
Popular Popeye's in the house. How's it going?
Hey, you know Popeyes, right, Dom?
Yeah, great guy. Very friendly, and I've had him on the channel before as well, and a great seller on Whatnot. I bought one of his comic. Well, actually, it was like a comic-based. They were comic-based themed postcards.
Oh, really?
Terrific lot. I really enjoyed it, and got a great deal on it from him.
Nice.
Oh, wow. Nice.
Yeah.
Marvelous Mr. Hot Wheels in the house. How's it going?
And then the next thing we usually do, expensive Salvation Army found 2 vintage single-stitch sports shirts. Nice.
Nice.
Then the next thing we always do is we ask about buys. Have you been buying anything lately, Dom?
Yeah.
I mean, the Impel cards.
Yep. I just actually did a private pick this weekend, which is where I actually got the cards. In fact, you want to see something really cool that I just picked up as part of the private pick?
Absolutely.
This is a treat. It's just gonna take me 2 seconds to get it. Hold on a second.
All right, I'll go into the usual couple of quick things over here. The offers report, 139 we're down to. Last week was 173. That's a little lower than usual. 52 were older items, and then promoted 29 out of 51 were promoted. So we ended up getting charged on about 60% of our listings.
Cool. Very good.
All right, you ready for this?
We're ready.
Keeping us all in suspense here.
All right, here we go. This is about a 6-pound Dragon Samurai helmet.
Whoa.
It has a chin strap on it. It's meant for decor mostly, but not really. It's a replica of the old school ones from back in the day that they actually used to use, but they have a dragon on it. They have like emblems on the front with more dragons and tigers and stuff. It's a really, really cool piece. It's not actual gold, even though, might look it. It's made of iron and it's basically spray painted a gold color. So it's really not real. You gotta be careful. Sometimes people will say it's like 24 karat gold or gold plated, but actually it's not. But it looks really cool. Still, these go for about $275 or so. So, and some of them will go for more depending on the design, but this is just another cool thing I picked up from that.
Don't put your
Can we see that again real quick? I got a good idea for you.
Yeah.
Those little shields on the sides there, they're like square. I think if you can connect beers to them somehow and put the little straws in, you're golden.
I'll try to do that. It's known as a kabuto helmet. So if you're looking
Nice.
at keyword, if you ever come across something like this, but really, really cool piece.
I'm
So
just scared you're gonna put your eye out. You keep turning that thing around,
Yeah.
and I'm going, that looks pretty sharp.
Definitely.
yeah. And I did just as a little preview, I have an estate sale video that will be coming out this weekend. It was an epic estate sale in the middle of nowhere, and I came back with a pretty big haul from there. So if you've been waiting to see another estate sale video, stay tuned. The next one is going to be a lot of fun. So
Awesome. Cool.
How about you, Mr. Magazine? You been buying?
I'm trying not to buy so much with things tight, but these collections find their way. I did pick up a big Spider-Man collection, Silver Age, starting from issue I think 9 or 10 up through like 200. All high grade stuff too, so I'm going to get some of it graded. And, also upgrade my collection as well. But my biggest buy actually happened like 40 minutes ago before I got here. I bought a case of water and 12 towels because I knew I was going to need them tonight.
very smart, very smart.
Yeah.
Now I've had some requests to put the helmet on, so I
Nice.
won't put it on all the way, but I'll do you a little treat here. We'll see what it looks like if I. Here we go. We'll get that chin strap out of there. So maybe I should wear it out one of my videos. There you go.
You should wear it to the. Actually,
my Dragon Samurai helmet right there.
You should wear it to the estate sale and just start head bopping.
Yeah.
people.
If I went to the estate
your way
sale with this thing strapped on, I mean, this thing right here will kill someone. I mean, this is razor sharp, crazy.
Yeah. Awesome.
Actually, this was the first week in recent memory that I bought nothing in person. Now, I did buy a couple of things at Heritage, but we're going to talk about that a little bit later. But otherwise, I bought literally nothing this week in person.
Good. I'm jealous.
Yeah, so
very jealous.
got to be cutting down on the stuff, basically, is what it comes down to. Then we got next segment we always have over here, and there weren't that many of them. We run into glitch of the week. Now, have you noticed very many glitches this past week with various sites, Primetime? Or
No, well, only that I did have somebody message me who had made an offer to me. I actually had accepted the offer, and heard the cha-ching sound and everything. The guy happened to be from Washington, and I guess before he realized that I had accepted it, he sent me a message and said, "Hey, I'm trying to send you an offer on this item, but it says that you don't ship to Washington." And I said, "Yes, I do. And I already accepted your offer." I sent him an invoice to say, "Here, if you're having a problem finding it, here's a way to easily pay it. I just sent it to you." And he's like, "All right, I don't know, that was weird." And he paid for it and everything went fine. But, it does make you wonder, since this has been a long-term glitch going on for about 9 years
yep.
on eBay, how many missed or lost sales occur as a result of someone saying, "Oh, for some reason, this person doesn't ship to my state," and then they go to someone else.
Someone else.
Yep. And that was actually written down there because Mr. Magazine had somebody in Ohio reach out to him and say the same thing. You don't ship to Ohio?
Yeah.
It's exactly the same thing.
And I invoiced him. I go, I invoiced it. You got to have the email. You just click on it.
Obviously, the winner this week at Glitch of the Week is my air conditioning, but that's a whole nother story. I had a problem with PayPal. I couldn't log in. I went to log into PayPal, and it said, "Experiencing issues. Please try again." I then logged in 1 second later, and apparently they have crack IT team. Is in 1 second they were able to get it fixed, so you can't argue with that. I always wonder about those kind of things, though.
Well, for me, 312 times it was, "Oops, it's not you, it's us."
That's happened regularly.
Yeah.
Have you seen that a lot, Primetime?
Not recently, but there has been a big issue that's been going on for years. I haven't noticed it as much in like last few weeks or so, but for years there's been this recurring problem where you go to search for either click on like a prior sold listing or even a current listing, and the browser will say that the listing doesn't exist and it's been taken away or removed, and it's not true. Sometimes I've found that you have to take away all of the extra numbers and letters that are tacked on to the end from wherever you're searching from, and then hit enter again, and it will bring up. Sometimes it will come up if you bring it in another browser. But it's crazy. I could guarantee you that I lost, and everyone lost, a lot of sales from that glitch, because how many people are going to keep trying to figure out a way to get through to that link after it says that it doesn't exist when it does? So it's crazy.
And we had done or I had gone on a bit of a tirade a couple of weeks ago, and you'll enjoy this one, talking about searching for X-Men 94, which of course you're well aware of, and the difficulty I had in trying to find the Uncanny X-Men number 94. And when I typed in X-Men 94, the 83rd, I believe it was, item on the page was actually an X-Men number 94. And the rest of it were either X-Men comics from 1994, trading cards from 1994, and the like. And, you know, they're pushing a $3 trading card up near the top and not pushing the couple of $100 comic book.
Right.
And it's just kind of crazy. And, you know, all three of us are on eBay regularly. All three of us know how to search. All three of us, if we don't find it first, we'll keep digging a little deeper trying to find it. Will the casual user do that? Probably not. And that's what the fear is. The casual users aren't coming on the site and finding the things that they need.
Yeah.
Seems to be what we're finding. Then we head on into the insulting offer of the week. Now, what do you do with insulting offers, Primetime?
I actually had just discussed this when I was a guest on Cat the Nurse Flipper's channel. She had a guest host, Yvonne Thrifty Rich, guest hosted it and had me on with Crazy Lamp Lady and Lindy Glenn, and we're talking about this very issue. Opinions are divided on what to do, but what I do if it's an extreme lowball offer, and I've talked about this on my channel for years, I will block the person and I will then send them a message and tell them that I block them for submitting an extreme lowball offer, and then I'm done with them. Like, for example, last week, I even talked about this on the show when it happened. You were talking about X-Men comic. I had like $150 X-Men comic up for sale, and a person offered me 20 or 25 bucks for it or something, which is absolutely
So
insane.
laughable.
I'll take it even, it doesn't matter necessarily I was 150. I even had a $10.99 a baseball press clipping print, and they wound up, I had it for $10.99 and with shipping included. Person offered me $2 on it. So, you know, I don't want that kind of customer. Like, I know some people say, like, technically, like, there are some times you can convert one of those people into an actual buyer. I don't want to deal with that personally. I mean, that's fine if you want to do that. I just don't want to waste my time dealing with that person, and I don't want to, you know, I just like to discourage it as much as possible. So I know I cut that person off for me forever, but maybe they'll think twice before sending that offer onto Nanette or, you know, you guys or something.
Right. Well, and the thing
I'll
is,
take one for the team.
You've got the $150 price on the X-Men. I don't know what margins you work on, but say you would take $120. Let's just say that's what you're willing to take. They're offering 25. It's a long way for them to get to 120. And you know as well as I do, they'll be at 25, then they'll offer you 35, then they'll offer 45. They'll run out of times to offer you at 65, and they're still nowhere near what you're willing to take on it. So why waste your time?
Right. And then when they run out, they'll send you a message.
Yes.
Right. Yeah.
Absolutely.
Say, oh, sorry, you ran out. I should have thought about that.
Well, what we have here, as you can see, is
your terminology is blocking. Ours is a little different.
We have the band hammer.
Okay, yeah.
Pick this up over, and we used the band hammer. Now, we only used it twice this week because, again, we don't want to do our usual full show here. We got a couple of insulting offers over here. Mr. Magazine had, and are you a wrestling fan, Dom?
I love wrestling. Big wrestling fan.
Well, Mr. Magazine still has this for sale. Spoiler alert, so you can buy this from him.
Okay.
He had Rob Van Dam and Jeff Hardy signed wrestling figure. It's a 2-pack signed by both of them.
Yep.
He was asking $450 on it. It was GSA, right?
Yep,
GSA certified and everything like that.
Like the set alone goes for like $200. It's a rare two-pack.
Somebody offered him $100 on it.
Yeah.
So, and then I had, and you probably were reading this. In fact, I think I saw you reading this right when you came on with us. Chemical Essays of Charles William Scheele, the book from 1786. I think you were reading up on that as you came in.
One of my favorites with a kickback in a hammock with a cool lemonade.
It's a real barn burner, that book. It's a $1,500 book. I got a $100 offer on it.
Nice.
Where are you going?
Right.
Where
yeah, exactly. Exactly right. Once in a while, if I'll send a message, I'll say back, that's how much it costs to ship it.
Yeah.
Or that doesn't even cover how much it costs to ship it or something like that too.
Well, I love like new action figures that cost like 50, $75 in stores, and they're like a month old. And they're offering $20, $30. You can't get them that cheap anywhere on the planet. Crazy.
I like to put back occasionally on somebody. I literally just put funny. That's literally my entire thing back to funny.
Yeah, but I mean, those signed wrestling figures do great. I mean, I showed a video last year where I sourced a whole bunch of signed Gold Dust figures,
Nice.
and I think every one of them sold. I may have
Oh,
one
wow.
left, but then they sell really well. Well over $100.
Yeah, definitely, especially for a 2-pack there.
Yeah.
And then customer issues. Have you had any issues with customers lately, Dom? Like actual customers?
I'm trying to think.
Crazy customers, any type of customers.
Or anybody making crazy requests to you or anything at all like that. We get those all the time too.
Well, yeah. Okay, so I'd sold a comic book to this guy. It was like it was $100 comic book. It was a Marvel Age with Todd McFarlane drew Spider-Man on the cover of it.
Okay.
So it's a pretty desirable book. I happen to have 3 copies of them. They came from the same collection and they're in the same condition. They have a faint ripple along the bottom. So the guy was very demanding when he was writing me messages. The first thing that he wrote me, so he bought the book Saturday morning when I was at an estate sale. Okay. Saturday morning. I'll give you a time reference for this because this was right before the Juneteenth holiday.
Okay.
So he sends me a message that evening and he says, "Did you ship out this book yet?" And he goes, "I don't see that you've shipped it out." And he's like jumping all these conclusions. And he goes, "And if you don't ship it out by Monday, I'm demanding a cancellation." So I'm like, first of all, I have 1-day shipping. I said, you ordered it 10 o'clock on Saturday. I said, so it goes out the next business day, which is Tuesday, since Juneteenth is a federal holiday. Now, when he sent the offer, by the way, he's like, make sure this ships out in a Gemini mailer, which I would, of course, send that out in a Gemini mailer. So then when I clarify all this to him, he's like, okay, I didn't realize that Juneteenth was a federal holiday. And then instead of saying like, oh, I'm sorry, for anything that he said, he goes, and make sure it goes out in a Gemini mailer. He says it again. And I'm like, it's already packed up in the Gemini mailer. So, okay, now I'll give the guy credit. He did leave me very nice, positive feedback, but there's a further funny part to this story. So as soon as I ship out the item, I list the next book.
Oh boy. Oh,
now, I took new photos.
Oh, okay.
But it's the same description. So he goes back and looks at it and he's looking again at this book for some reason. And he goes, hey, I don't understand what's going on here. He goes, you listed the same book. He goes, you need to take that listing down. I said, actually, no, I don't need to take it down because that's the actual new book. And I happen to have 3 copies of it. So instead of being like, oh, okay, yeah, I should, all right, I'll back off. He's like, yeah, but you literally have the same exact description. It's a different book. I'm like, yeah, it's a different book. But if you put it side by side, which I actually did, since I have all 3 of them, it is literally, it looks identical. You can't tell the difference between the 2 books. I said, so there's nothing that needs to change. And that listing is still up right now. But, and then he just didn't say anything after that. But like some people, they just don't know how to communicate. And, so it's always interesting dealing with those types of customers. So just try to stay calm. I'm talking to you about it in an animated voice, but with him, I'm just, on text, I'm just stating the facts. That's it.
Well, want to thank Zmergy. Thank you very much. Do appreciate it. 35 weeks. Sadly, 36 weeks, 2 days till I retire. So I wish it were only 35. How about you, Dom? How long do you have till you retire?
Well, technically, I could retire in about 7 years. But if I want to like max out on full benefits, I'd have to wait like 12. But very likely I will. Right now, my thought is to do it in the 7 years. So I'd love to retire at 55. 55 is the goal.
There you go. Yeah, so we had a couple of customer issues. Mr. Magazine got one. You're gonna get a kick out of this one. Mr. Magazine sold he sells magazines over on Amazon, and he got an email from somebody. Please don't send me any more mail magazines. And we're like, okay, we don't tend to send magazines out to people unless they're ordered.
Correct.
So
Right.
the only thing we can think of is somebody might be pranking him and buying them as gifts for him and having them sent to him. And he's saying, don't send us anymore. And we're like, we don't know. If somebody pays us, we send it out to the
Exactly.
address on file. We don't know any better.
Yep.
Right.
That was kind of a crazy one over there. And then I had one that kind of got my goat. And tell me how you would handle this, Dom. So a guy ordered a magazine. I don't want to use the word fall, but I'm going to use the word fall. Do you fall for people's sob stories?
No, never. Never.
Oh, well, you're a better man than me. So I had a magazine, and the gentleman made me an offer on it of, I believe, $16, and I was asking $32 on it, and it's got free shipping, et cetera, et cetera. Hey, can you help me out? I'm a disabled veteran, yada, yada, yada. And I said, thank you for your service. I said, I got to make some money. I can't sell it at 60. I'm not making anything at that. So he comes back with an offer of 20. And I said, all right, I'll do that. I appreciate your service. And so I accepted the $20. And he says, ship it in rigid because of my postman. And I said, yeah, no problem. So what I did is I took it and I put it sandwiched it between two pieces of cardboard. Should be fine, no problem. I've shipped plenty of things out that way. He gets it, unloads on me after he gets it. You should have known better. My mailman bent it in half, trying to put it in my apartment thing. It's an apartment, da, da, da. And then he goes, I don't mean to offend you, but I'm suffering from chronic pain, something or other. And I'm like, I banned him. I gave him his money back. I said, I've given you a full refund. I banned him. And then I commented to him and I said, if I may offer you a little bit of advice, I said, if you're aware that you have this kind of problem with your mailman, don't try to nickel and dime people down on prices and play the guilt game.
Right.
Offer the full amount, but put a note in there saying, hey, you want $32 on it? I'm willing to pay the $32. Is there any way you can ship it to me in a box? I said, then we both win. I said, but you gilded me down into a lower price, and then you yell at me that it didn't. I said, I packed in pieces of cardboard, which I've shipped thousands of items out and never had a problem. If it's really that bad with your mailman,
how about complaining to the post office?
Right.
Yeah.
Well, I mean, a lot of times people will write in a message either before, but usually after the sale's been completed, that their mail person is bad at, has a history of damaging items or stuff, something along those lines. And so they want extra care taken in shipping. And so, I just try to reassure them. So, but you're right. I mean, this gets back to communication. It's good to communicate that type of stuff.
especially prior to. You know what I mean? It's one
Right,
of those
prior to, not telling you about it until afterwards. I had a funny story once where a guy wanted a signed Todd McFarlane Spawn comic book, which I don't remember exactly how much it was going for at the time, but let's just, for sake of discussion, let's say it was like $100 or something like that. And the guy sent me not an extreme lowball offer, but lower than what I wanted to take. And so I eventually sent them a counter offer, and he was going lower than the counter that I wanted to take. And so he said to me, hey, listen, I'm trying to get this for my son. My son really wants this so badly. It would make his birthday and everything like that. And so could you please take it for this price? And I said, hey, listen, here's what's going to happen. I said, I promise you, I said, if you buy the book at the price that I threw out there, I said, you're going to vault to #1 in the dad rankings, and your son is going to love you. It's going to be worth every extra penny that you spend on it. And the funny thing was, like, within about 5 minutes of sending that, he accepted the offer. I couldn't stop laughing. It was so funny.
Wow.
I'm going to try that.
So got to use the dad rankings. If they ever try anything with the kids, just throw out the dad rankings out there. It works.
Wow. Nice. All righty, so that concludes our regularly scheduled programming. Now we're going to head into, I don't know if anybody out there noticed or not, we have a prominent guest today, Primetime Treasure Hunter. And I think the number one question we have for you, and I think a lot of people out there have, and I don't know how much you've discussed this elsewhere, but your relationship with Whatnot.
Right. So, I have discussed it, but only on the member side of my channel where I do live shows.
So breaking exclusive.
Breaking. So, but publicly, haven't really discussed it. Not on my channel. But happy to discuss it here. So, I've had an up and down relationship with Whatnot. Just for reference point, um, I started selling on there over a year ago, and I sold there for a little bit more than a year. When I started on the platform, it was the right time because there was really a lot of buzz about it at the time, especially in the reselling community. And that's why at the time, actually, I set up the it's the Whatnot for Resellers Facebook group, which to this day is still the biggest group on Facebook by far,
15,000
dedicated to
members, right?
Whatnot. It's over 15,000 members. Like
Nice.
even Whatnot's own Facebook groups don't even come close to what we have in the group. Like we literally have Grant LaFontaine, the guy who started Whatnot, is in the group.
Oh, wow.
Right? Which is still going, by the way, and I still run in, people go on it. So, I saw it at the time as an opportunity to move volume, which was something that I wanted to do. And in fact, if it wasn't for Whatnot really was the factor that really made me pull the trigger on that U-Haul collection of
Right.
50,000 comic books. Which I still do have a lot of, Mr. Magazine. I did make somewhat of a dent in it, but I still have a
Nice.
lot to go through. So, um, I don't know if you want me to answer very specific questions or because you kind of, I could really go. I don't want to go on a long diatribe about it. I guess I'll say just a couple quick summary points, and then I'll let you ask me specific questions about it. So I was excited about it. It was something new, and I like trying new things. And so I did watch for a while and watched people I knew and had respect for who tried the platform and were having success in it, not only in the reselling community, but also what made me also pay more attention to it was getting a lot of attention in the comic book community. Comic Tom, for example, Gem Mint, and some other guys, were and some women as well were having some success selling on the platform. So I said, all right, I'm hearing this now in multiple spheres. I'll try to pay more attention to it, and then eventually submitted an application and was accepted onto the a platform. And when I first started selling on there, I was really doing well. And overall, I have to say, if anyone's curious about numbers or anything, I don't regret doing it one single bit at all. It was a great experience. I learned a lot of stuff. There's positives and negatives, which I'm sure we'll get into, but for that 1 year period, the net income that I had, so this is after all the fees for 1 year, a little over a year, was 31. I just looked it up before I came down here. $31,360 or so. So that, to put this into perspective, I joke with my daughter about this. I literally paid for her first year of college with Whatnot. So I, again, don't regret it. So that's not the gross, that's the net take home from all that. So it was working out very well in the beginning, but ultimately, and there's a lot of reasons why I wound up stepping off, but the main reason, again, there are others we get into, is eventually what happened is that I saturated my buyer base. So I have a very narrow group of people who would come in who are interested in buying comic books, and that's predominantly what I sold on there. We did have a few other shows where we sold like Disney magazines, or Mrs. Primetime had a jewelry show that she was doing for a little bit, but for me personally, I did one show where I sold some plush, but it was predominantly like 98% was comics. Initially once a week, then twice a week. But several months before I decided to shut things down, I turned to Mrs. Primetime and I said, this is not going to be sustainable. I said, because it is very easy for me to identify that the number of people who were coming in to consistently buy comic books was gradually shrinking over time. So originally, I get at its peak, I had about 62 people that came into a show. Sometimes it would be 50, 40, 30, hover around that for the first several months that I was doing it. But over time, the platform became more and more diluted with more and more sellers, and it became more and more competitive. And so people had more places to go to, more options. And as I said, the people who are more consistent and loyal to my particular show, there's just so much money they are going to allocate per week, per month, whatever number you want to give, over the course of a year to keep coming and buying comic books from you. Not only that, as you know from collecting comic books, the other problem I had is people were saturated in terms of space. So comic books take up a lot of room. It does not take long before they take up a lot of space. They become heavy. And if you're not single, then your spouse typically wants them out of whatever room that you might have them in and into some place that might be a little more inconvenient to access. So that started to become a problem as well, to the point that at the end of my run, I'm not kidding, I literally had some shows where I had, if you really want to factor in the numbers, because I had a few family members who were watching, like Mrs. Primetime would be logged in, my daughter, my mother-in-law sometimes, a few, my son every once in a while would pop in. So the number there and might say like 9 or 10, and you as the user, the seller, you count as one person.
Oh, all right. Yep.
Like 4 family members in who are watching, that's 5 people, and I have 9. I literally only have 4 or 5 people in my stream. So we went from, at one point, we literally at the beginning, every single show, this is not an exaggeration, for months and months and months, it was 99 to 100% sell-through rate. Literally, everything that I put up was selling. So sorry, let me mute that. Everything that I put up was selling.
It might be Whatnot.
Huh?
It's probably Whatnot. They're saying,
Yeah, yeah.
come back.
Yeah, like, what the hell are you doing? But then it became a point where more and more that I was doing the shows, fewer and fewer things were selling. So by the end, I mean, I would shut shows down early, actually. I had a policy that if I had 5 things in a row that wouldn't sell, this is just me personally,
Yeah.
I would just shut it down because, it creates a negative energy and then people just feel weird about bidding almost. So, I would just, so that would happen sometimes, or just not enough things would sell. And it was taking more and more of my time up as time went on to, instead of doing 1 show a week, now I'm doing 2 shows a week. Instead of doing a show where I'm just putting in the titles, now I'm putting in titles and I'm putting in photos. And now I'm adding in buy it nows. Like the demands were significantly increasing on my time, which is limited already because I have a full-time job. So basically, the vast majority of my free time was being taken up by preparing these shows. And it just, at a certain point, it got to that it just wasn't worth it for me anymore, because it was taking away from other things that I wanted to do, including my YouTube channel. I was like only publishing a video once every 2 weeks. I still kept it going, but now it's more back to once a week. I wasn't able to keep up with my Facebook group as much as I am now. I still kept up with it every day, but now I'm able to do it better. eBay, while eBay did take a hit, I noticed financially, so I made less on eBay that year than I did the year prior. The difference though was exceeded by what I did make net on Whatnot, which is one of the things I definitely wanted to check on. So it still it balanced out and made up for it. But if I would have kept going, that wouldn't have happened. So now I'm able to redouble my efforts onto eBay and other things I want to do, including family time, personal time, time with my son, time with my daughter, things like that. And I have to tell you, and the reason why I did not make a video about this immediately, because this is now months ago where I made this decision, I didn't want emotions to get in the way of anything that I was going to say. I wanted to take some time away from it, step away from it, process it before I really said anything about it. But I have to tell you, as having stepped away from it, again, I don't regret it, but I am in such a better place right now, just mentally, and just I feel so much more organized. That's another thing. Like things started piling up more than they ever had been. I'm usually able to keep on top of it better, but then, I wasn't able to do that as much. And now, oh my God, I just have such a sense of peace, and I'm able to go to the gym more. I'm able to cook, more on like the weekends and stuff. And so I feel like I've gotten my life back, which kind of like slowly was the best way I could describe it is that it was like a little snowball that just slowly evolved over time into this massive, snow boulder of responsibilities related to whatnot that it just, at the end of the day, it was not sustainable anymore.
I think the word that you just used right there, I think, is a great word because I do feel that side of it, and that's the responsibility. I run 2 shows a week. I run Tuesday ephemera and Thursday books. Let me ask you this: roughly, how many items did you have in an auction?
So I did two types of auctions. I did one on Saturday evening, and that was 100 lots.
Oh, okay.
Typically, those would sell out. Now, I didn't originally start off that way, but that's what it built up to. And then my Wednesday night show at 9 p.m., that one was 50 lots. So
Okay.
about half. Yeah.
All right. So it's 150 because inevitably my ephemera shows are 42 lots and my book shows are 36 lots. So that's 78 lots. You're doing twice that.
Yeah.
And, I definitely do feel the pressure to, oh my goodness gracious. It's because I always try to put, like, I've got an auction tomorrow. My next book auction is up already for the following Thursday, and so on. So I always try to be at least an auction ahead on things. And you do feel that pressure and that stress on you saying, uh-oh, I've got this weekend, I've got to find time to put together the lots in order to get them up in time. Now, granted, if you don't, nothing bad happens to you. We're not under any contractual obligation to do it. But I think you and I both figured out that, having the same time every week definitely does help because people almost go out of their way to come to your sale because they knew you were Saturday nights.
Right. Well, that was one of the things is that they emphasized the need to stay consistent, try to keep a consistent time, consistent theme. And that was just one of many selling, techniques that they taught. I actually attended they invited me to a 3-week course, a seller course, in the comic category. They have these courses in other categories as well, but at one week, for example, it was small group like Zoom, and one was all about marketing, another one was on sourcing, and then there was another week as well on another topic. But it was helpful. I mean, I learned new tips. They challenged you to experiment with things that you weren't comfortable with. So I tried different things. Like I had in the beginning, you didn't see my face on there, even though like on YouTube you always do. I did it the traditional way where you just see my hands and stuff
Yeah.
like that.
Yeah.
But then I flipped it around to try to make it more personable, and I experimented with many different formats. I mean, I did $2 starts, $3 starts, higher starts. I did winner's choice. We did all sorts of different types of giveaways. We did bundle lots. I mean, we did
You did pretty much everything. Yeah.
yeah, we really gave so many different options a try. And at the end of the day, something might work for a little bit, but then it was always time to try to retool it and try something else because it wasn't sustaining itself for long term.
Seems very hard to grow a whatnot business, especially for collectibles.
It can be. I think one of the things that my case proves is that even if you have a big social media presence, and big is relative, right? So like on my channel, I'm at 53,000 subscribers. Now, compared to someone like Harry Tornado or Froggy Flips, that's like nothing. Okay. But to someone who's like just starting out, that might seem like, wow, that's a big channel. You have a big social media presence. And then when you factor in like the Facebook group and Instagram or something like that, people would say, okay, well, that's decent. But the problem that I noticed is that unless your social media presence is really tied in directly with what you're trying to sell on whatnot, it makes it much more difficult. So in other words, if I had a YouTube channel and all my Instagram and Facebook was purely dedicated to comic book selling, I think I would have sustained it much longer and I would have had a better base coming in to support those kind of shows. But when you run a more generalist type of channel like I do, which is basically a state sale, garage sale, flea market, picking of anything and everything essentially, including comics, I pick up a couple of the people who like the comic stuff, and some of those came to my shows. But again, that's not enough to build a big base. So, I think it's easier to do if you can link that, whatever it is you're trying to sell, with what you do on your channel. And also, if you could try to cater more to people who are reselling. So, like, I think a good example is John Popeye's Postcards, who's in the chat. He's Popeye's postcards. That's awesome marketing. So, what does he sell on Whatnot? He sells postcards. So that makes sense. I'm not Dominic's Comics, even though that might be a catchy name to do one day. That's not the name of my store, my business. It's Primetime Treasure, which is much more broad. And not only that, one of the things John also figured out, I told you earlier when you brought his name up, I bought a lot of postcards from him, and when he sold it to me, he even said, hey, you could resell these. So he does really well in selling out bulk lots on there. I did sell some bulk lots, but my model on Whatnot was not selling to resellers. It was more selling to collectors at a discounted price. I tried my best to always make it discounted compared to what you could find on eBay. And I think by like 90+% of the time I was successful in that, maybe even more. Once in a while, a mistake might happen. But for Whatnot, most of the people on there are resellers who are trying to find a deal. There are some collectors on there, but primarily it's resellers. So it makes it tougher if you're also not catering to that base.
Right. And where I will say it's definitely helped me is
lose money. It's helped you lose money.
Yes, helped me lose a lot of money because it's so hard to do that. Now it's helped me put me off my game there. Where when I'm out at the flea market, because that's where I pick up most of my things, I'll be buying extra things that I wouldn't otherwise have bought because I'll say this is absolutely perfect for Whatnot. And I'll give a perfect example. I've got some RPPCs. I don't deal in them, but when I'm out at the flea market, I know enough that I'll say, hey, this is going to sell on Whatnot and the price is right on them. Right. I buy them and I start all my things at $3. The way I look at it is, even if it sells at the $3 start, I'm making a little bit of money on it as it is. And that's almost found money for me, because in the old days, I just would have walked by it. So that's kind of where I find that it helps me is I buy additional things now when I'm out, and I do the quick flip on it because I can get rid of it so quickly on Whatnot. So that's where it helps me.
Right.
It's actually helped me too. I'm saving money because I got a smaller dumpster now. Instead of me throwing the stuff out, I just get Papergoy back. He flips it, gives me a check for $50 every week.
There you go. Works out. So I mean, it can work. I mean, there's other ways that I've seen that it could work is that you could build a business off of it, especially in comics, is if you have some type of access to exclusive items that no one else has. And there are plenty of people who have that due to their connections. They built up established relationships with comic artists, for example, who will release exclusive variants only on their show, and it will only drop on their show. That's a good model. That works. But, I personally don't have those relationships with, comic artists that they're releasing exclusive variants on my channel. So, on Whatnot. So, but if you could do something like that, that's another way it could work out for you.
I think it's harder for someone like me, though. I got a warehouse, 12 employees, and to take my employees off listing my day-to-day stuff, I think would cost me money because, if I'm spending an hour prepping, an hour listing, an hour, hour selling, and then an hour packing, that's 3 hours. I can give my employees thousands of dollars in products to list in those 3 hours. So why would I take them off that where they can sell $300, $400, $500?
Right. Well, right. But remember that the time commitment on it, it really increased a lot over time. It wasn't like that so much in the beginning, but it became more and more of a burden if you if you want to try to maximize the amount of people who will purchase from you. So like one of the reasons why I was making sure I was putting photos in, because there was a significant percentage of people who are coming into my Facebook group, and they weren't targeting this to me, but they were just saying in general, if I go into a Whatnot show and I don't see pictures of the items in advance, I'm out. They don't want to sit around and wait and guess and see what it is that you have. Sometimes people didn't even have title. Still to this day, some people don't have titles. It might just say
Comic lot
item
one.
number one. That's
Yep.
it. And so that, was even less attractive to those folks. So, over time, the demands for, and the other thing too, is that the way they make the pictures look now is actually much nicer. It has a nice white background compared to when it first started. If you put a picture on there, it was like microscopic. It was very difficult to see. But when it really turned to looking almost like an eBay listing, as soon as I saw that, I'm like, great, now I've got to make sure I add at least one photo to these listings. And that one thing, I have to say, the adding the photo, even just one, that really took up a lot of time. Because if you could think of like doing that to 150 listings a week, that's a lot.
Well, if I could, and if whatnot, if you are watching this or you do watch this, they did send me a survey, and I did suggest that take comic books for example. If you're selling comic books, the weight's always going to be, for a single comic, 4 to 7 ounces.
Right.
Set it up so that you can default on your auction to 4 to 7 ounces, and just have it show up on that on each and every. Now you can change it if you're putting a lot up, but then it defaults to it, because that is it is now. Each time you got to enter the shipping weight. Why do I have to enter the shipping weight 150 times when they're all 4 to 7 ounces? Let me default to 4 to 7 ounces.
Right. Well, there used to be, because the time I left, it was actually very good timing, because they got rid of the seller dashboard on Whatnot, and they changed the shipping policies. So the shipping now is, oh my God, it's like mind boggling compared to what it used to be. Because originally it was, you buy something at the regular rate and then everything else is just $1. Remember those days?
Yep.
That's how it was originally, when I started. So as you could imagine, when I started, this was one of the things that was propelling 100% sell-through rates on things.
Yeah.
But then once it changed to now it's every additional item, it's $2.50. Well, that's going to decrease the amount of people who are going to start buying an extra book. And that's exactly what I saw happen. So as these things started to happen more, that started to, cause more, issues.
I want to change gears a little bit here. You do a lot with comics. What are you seeing in the comics market? Just sales overall, prices?
The comic bubble has popped. It really, comic sales went to crazy heights during the pandemic. More people were home digging through their collections, just like they were doing with some other types of collectibles like sports cards. And everyone was home using their pandemic money and spending it on collectibles. So as a result, you saw things hit these crazy prices. Now, a lot of the prices that things were going for back then are not even coming close to, what they were during the pandemic. So things have settled down, and it's really a bad time for people who were speculating a lot back then and thinking things were going to keep going up and up and up, because every week you kept seeing record-breaking prices, and people just thought this was going to keep going. So they were spending even more and more and more. And now it's going to take a long time. They're going to have to hold on to those comics that they bought if they were speculating to try to recoup their money, or they're going to take a loss on them. So, but comic book sales are still strong. Heritage Auction just sent out an email that they had 103 record-breaking sales. Then again, it's Heritage, so they typically have stuff like that happen. They have the highest end collectors who are buying stuff there, so it makes sense. But still, good to see that the comic market is still strong. I'm still seeing strong sales in the comic book space. So I don't think it's a market that ever will truly die, because people always want to go to something that gives them a fantasy escape from real life, and comic books do a great job at that. So,
Whatnot does that for Papergoy.
Right.
All right, I'm going to put you on the spot here, and you can certainly say no if you don't know. Do you know who Titanium Man is?
Wait, Titanium Man is. Is that like that must be a comic character type?
Oh,
Yeah.
it's a joke because I'm getting a titanium hip in a month.
Okay.
Not a
I
joke,
want to be
but
Titanium Man in a month.
It's not a joke.
August 9th.
I'm thinking of a comic. I thought there was a
That is.
Titanium Man,
He was-
but okay.
He's from Marvel Comics.
Yeah. Yeah.
He was in Tales of Suspense number 69. And the reason I bring this up is you were talking about speculation.
Right.
So I went over to Heritage and I ended up picking up at the last auction a CGC 6.5 of that comic.
Okay.
And I paid $79 for it with buyer's premium.
Yeah.
February, in fact, it was Valentine's Day 2022. One sold for $432. So I bought it for 15 or 18% of what the high was of the speculation. Now, I was wondering if there was some kind of a rumor about Titanium Man being in a Marvel comic or something like that. And that was what hyped it up to $432 because that's insane for it to drop down to $70 essentially.
Well, there have been rumors that, but I don't think it's true. But I did hear some rumors that Arnold Schwarzenegger was going to play Titanium Man, and when did this happen?
2022.
Yeah, because it was December 2022 where these rumors started floating around. So, I don't know if that had any kind of relationship with it, but I've had that happen before where you get this weird speculation rumor that occurs. I'll give you a great example was the Munsters movie. So it was about to drop and people thought, oh, wow, this might be a great movie or whatever. And it might do great at the box office, which it didn't. But I happen to have the single highest graded it was the single highest graded Munsters comic book for a particular issue. And I had it at this crazy price and it sold for close to that price.
Wow.
But really, should the person really have spent that much they were doing it based on the speculation, but it turns out the speculation didn't pan out the way they had hoped it to. So that's probably going to be a loss.
And then we had another question for you because Mr. Magazine and I are at, we got a little fisticuffs this morning over this one. So I bought at Heritage Fantastic Four number 370, which is a nothing issue, but it was a CGC 9.8. And I wanted at my opening bid of $1 plus $29 buyer's premium. So I paid $30 for a CGC 9.8 Fantastic Four 370, which is, again, a nothing issue. What is your thought on that short term, long term? Again, it's a nothing issue, but it's a 9.8.
What's my thought of buying nothing issues at 9.8s?
And 9.8s for the $1 opener plus $29 shipping, so $30.
I don't think it's bad because as someone once told me, here's a quote, everyone's looking for that 9.8 baby. So, if you could get something in a 9.8, it might not be a relevant book now, but the next thing I've seen so many examples of this where a comic book that at one point had no relevance, no one was specking on it at all. And all of a sudden something happens. There's some announcement that a comic character or something that was said in a particular comic book, might have something to do with a movie that's coming out. And the next thing you know, it shoots up in interest. So, you're taking a little bit of a gamble that might happen if there's not something already known about the comic. So I would say primarily if you're investing in comic books, and you want to grab a 9.8 or something, like grab it for a book that you really love. Like I have some comic books behind me on my wall, as you could see there. And they're just ones I personally love, but they don't have any intrinsic value to them. Like I just personally love them. From like, for example, I have a Spectacular Spider-Man with Tombstone on the cover. I just love the cover. It's cool. If I could find it in 9.8, which I easily could, I wouldn't mind buying it and holding on to it. If it doesn't sell, it doesn't sell. And then I've got a great trophy, that I'm looking at. So that's what I would advise. But I think if you're overall just looking on investing in 9.8s that don't have much intrinsic value to them and just hoping that, they're going to all of a sudden one day just shoot up in value and you're going to make a ton of money on them, you're probably going to lose more than you're going to win on that.
So he kind of came right down in the middle, Mr. Magazine.
Well, like I said, if you're a Fantastic Four fan, that's great. $30,
right?
9.8. I would, I'd buy any Spider-Mans all day long. And I'm sure there's some out there that no one cares about. But if you're investing in this, I doubt it would ever be $100 comic. You need them. You don't want to pay $30 and sell it for $50. What's the point of doing that after the $50? So
Yeah.
for it to go to 100 and make it worth your while,
It's going to take a long
stretch.
time for that to happen. Yeah. Unless there's some major event or something like that.
Well, somebody looked up Terapeak before the show, and there have been 2 sales of 9.8s in the last 2 years on eBay, $88 and $100.
Yeah, probably a year and a half to
plus
2 years ago,
shipping.
not recent.
So, and then I guess the final regular question we wanted to ask you is, what era of comics do you specialize in?
I would have to say it's the 80s Bronze Age books.
Okay.
But I love the Silver Age ones as well. I get a bunch of those in, but I'd have to say it's Bronze Age.
Now we get our hands on more of them. I think that's part for me.
Yeah.
Too, Bronze Age.
Yeah, well, right, but also that I grew up with the Bronze Age books, you know.
Yeah.
So I mean, I love those. That's my era, you know. Those 80s books, I love them.
Yeah.
You know, 70s books. I was born in the 70s, but I wasn't reading comic books, you know, in 1975. So, but now when I go back and look at them, I love the art on those. I love the Golden Ages. They're of course much harder to find, but
Right.
yeah, I love Bronze Age.
Because I guess my question is, and Mr. Magazine and I have talked about this. You get into the ultra modern stuff. You know, you got the variant covers, one of 25,
Yeah.
one of 100,
Yeah.
one of 250. You've
Right.
got all these different things. It's almost, because I've been in comic books forever.
Okay.
It's almost like a whole nother language to me.
Yeah, right. So that's a good point. Okay, because I do have a lot of that. Yeah, right. Because I do have a lot of that stuff that I sell, and this is one of the things that's important. So comic collecting has shifted over the years, and so what comic collecting has largely become now for younger folks is they're not really collecting the comic book anymore for the story and to read it. They're primarily collecting the comic because they love the cover. And if they feel that it's rare or exclusive in some way, they love to show it off. They love to display it. That's the main reason why people are picking up comics these days. So that's why you'll see I go out and I source a lot of those types of books that are variants, 1 in 25s, 1 in 50s, exclusives, certificates of authenticity, that type of stuff. Is people just love that stuff. They eat it up. And for modern comics, I mean, they'll pay crazy prices for the books. So they just love it. They fall in love with a particular artist, and you know, and that's it. That artist comes out with a great new Venom cover, for example. It's exclusive, only 100 made, and they're gonna fall over it. So
yeah, and it's so difficult. We've talked about it before. It's just so difficult for us because, I mean, I have enough trouble, and I get down the other way into the minutia where, and I'll give an example. I was actually out at a sale, and I saw a giant Archie comic from like 1960 or 61 had a 35-cent cover price, and I said, "Wait, those aren't 35 cents. That's supposed to be 25%." So I picked it up. Turns out it was a Canadian price variant. So I'm down in the complete opposite side, worrying about Canadian price variants for the 50s and 60s, which is nights and day from the 125 variant cover. So it's kind of interesting where you can, what rabbit hole you decide to go down, I guess is the point.
Right. But that's the fun thing with comics is there's so many different types of like sub niches that people are interested in. Like there's literally people who collect books that have the title displaced by something happening on the cover. Like the letters have been broken up because the Hulk punched them. Like people literally collect those kind of covers. Another thing people collect, and you'll love this, and anyone who loves ephemera is going to love this. If you look at comic books, they have spray on the side of them, like a certain color, and some of them have overspray, so it sprays over onto the back cover. Some they're called overspray covers, and people literally collect them because they have overspray on it. So if you ever see that, you should look into it and list it with overspray on the cover. I was just trying to see if I had an example.
I've never heard of that.
But no, I don't have an example right here.
Wow.
But yeah, so definitely look for that because you'll see when most comics are lined up, you'll see on the outside there's like a stripe that will form. That stripe is part of the inking, and sometimes that oversprayed onto the cover, and so those are called overspray books. So people like that too.
Wow, there you go.
It's crazy.
I don't know either of those things over there. Yeah, and then the last thing, what do you think eBay's long-term projection for eBay?
Well, they seem to keep moving more and more into luxury items, high what they call high-end buyers, and continue to seem to me to move more and more away from the grassroots that helped to build them in the first place. And they're also really putting a lot of effort into pushing promoted listings. And I did some promoted listings early on at low rates, but I mean, I probably have some lingering around
Right.
from back in the day, but I don't promote anything anymore. Nothing. And I haven't really noticed any significant impact because I have found that as long as if you're using the keywords properly and you're competitive on price, one thing that eBay really can't do is if people are going to search based on price and they're going to sort from lowest to highest and you're going to fall somewhere on that first page as long as you're competitive. I'm not saying to race to the bottom because I know that topic comes up sometimes, but as long as the quality of the item that you have and the quality of seller that you're competing with, if it's pretty much equal, if you sourced it for a low price and you could go a little bit lower and be competitive and still make a healthy profit margin, then why not? But I don't ever suggest putting your items lower than somebody who had like an inferior quality item just to have a lower price. Or if someone had worse feedback than you, and most of the people watching here have excellent feedback, if everything is equal, I'm going to have a higher price on mine because the customer should have more confidence
Right.
that I'm going to deliver the goods, unlike the person with 200 negatives, you know,
Definitely.
which it's amazing to me. I literally saw a competitor the other day had 166 negatives and like 75 neutrals. And I'm like, how is this person still on? Which, by the way, brings up a pet peeve I have to bring up. I should have made a video about it. Do I have time to tell you something? Because
Of
it's
course.
about
Of course.
comics and paper items, and it absolutely drove me crazy. I had up a CGC single highest graded Grim Universe comic book signed by the artist, a 9.9. Now, emphasize that it's a sealed book. Now, the cover had no nudity on it whatsoever and nothing on the back. There was a picture of a girl in a thong,
Okay.
okay? But no nudity
Right.
at all by anyone's definition, including eBay's own definition. So I followed the letter of the law. I had this book up for a while. All of a sudden, eBay takes it down and tells me that I violated the adult content policy. So I call them up, and I'm very familiar with the adult content policy because I made two
Yeah. You
videos
did a
about it
video
on my
about it. Yeah.
YouTube channel.
Yeah.
So I call them up, and they bounce me back from person to person who keeps telling me the same thing, which is you violated the adult content policy by listing this book. I said, what do you mean? How? What did I violate? They said, this title is not allowed. Grim Universe is not allowed. I said, really? I said, where does it say that on the page
Yeah.
that Grim Universe is not allowed? It doesn't say it on the page at all. It lists all sorts of adult magazines that you could sell, but it doesn't say that there's this
Yeah.
particular title you can. Now there's something called Grim Fairy Tales, as you know, that is not on their list, but Grim Universe is, even though there's really no gigantic difference between the two. So I said to them, I said, how did I break the policy if the book the title that you're citing, it's not publicly available for any seller to know about? And they said, well, we determined in our own internal deliberations that this book goes on the list. I said, how many other books are on the list? She
Good
goes,
question.
I can't tell you how many books are on the list. I said, okay, well, I have some other comics. I want to throw these titles out
Yeah.
to
Can I
you.
at least read them to you? Yeah.
Could
Yeah.
you tell me if they're on the list?
Yeah.
So
That's fair.
I name them. I'm like Vampirella. Like I'm naming all these things. I'm like, Tarot Richard the Black Rose. I'm like naming all these things. So after I name like 3 books, the person's like, yeah, I could maybe do 2 more, but then I can't tell you anymore. So they're like, this is proprietary information, so I can't tell you what books are on the list. I said, if you want sellers to comply with the policy, And what we did, we followed the letter of the law of the policy. And by the way, the ironic thing is the whole point of the policy is that someone who's underage doesn't buy adult content,
Yeah.
open it up, and it goes to minors. This is, remember, this is why I emphasize this. This
Yeah.
is even if there was nudity in it, it's a CGC 9.9 signed book that's worth like thousands of dollars.
Yeah,
No
we're
one
not buying that to
get
do
that
that. No.
and crack it open.
Crazy.
So, but even if it wasn't graded, the point is they have a proprietary list of titles of comic books that they will ban, that they literally will not tell you about. And if you happen to list it, they will give you a strike.
Why
And
would it
take
hurt
your
them to
listing down.
send? Why can't they just send everyone a list of every
That's
adult
what I
magazine?
said.
What's
That's
wrong
what I
with
said.
It'd
I
make it
said that
better.
to her. Yeah, I said that to several of these folks that I spoke to over at eBay. And I said, if you ever sit down, I actually said, I said, do you ever, it was a funny conversation because I said, do you ever sit down with supervisors and tell them, listen, we got these calls from people, or I got this call from this person and they really had this criticism and it made a lot of sense. And I think we should change the policy. I said, does those conversations ever happen? She's like, yeah. I said, good. So if so, please make sure you pass this along because this is crazy. And the other thing, they keep reading from a script
Yep.
and they just keep saying over and over, you violated the policy because you listed a book that's on our banned list. So I just said, I know you're reading the script. I said, but I also know that that I'm right. Because there's no other logical explanation. You cannot tell someone they violated a policy when the policy you followed to the letter, everything you did is correct, but they have an internal document
Yeah.
that they're saying you violated, that
I
you
agree.
can't possibly know about and they won't share with you.
Or it's BS and there's no document until they see something they don't like.
Maybe, I don't know, but they literally, I've called back after that because I said, you know what I'm going to do? I had another book, right, that I wanted to list. And
There you go.
I said, I'll tell you what I'm going to do. I called him back. I said, here's what I want you to do. I said, I'm going to give you these 2 titles and I need you to tell me right now if they're on the list. Because if not, I'm going to list them. And I want you to document that I called and asked about it because the last thing I want is then next week you guys decide to add it to the list and then tell me that I've still violated the policy, even though I called ahead of time. So I said, did you enter it into my notes? They said, yes, we did. So that's what I would suggest is if you have anything like that, call them in advance and ask them if it's okay.
Yeah.
Mr. Magazine does that regularly with
Yeah,
a lot of different things.
Yeah, especially like adult photos, like cheesecake photos. The adult trading cards, like the autographed Playboy stuff like that, because people put them on and they show a full frontal, which you can get away with, and you can block them if you want. Like you can put a post-it over the frontal
The
nudity.
privates, yeah.
So they gave us a go ahead. The key is it has to be in a nude category. So it's got to
Right.
be. There's 3 categories with nude drop downs.
Right.
You can put them in an art, photographic, or something.
Right.
Like that. Yeah.
Right. But they don't have it for comics, which is the problem.
Yeah.
And in response to Chris, who said, no, Vampirella is not on the list, Amazon seller. But in response to Chris, who said, asked to speak to a supervisor, you have better luck having Santa Claus call you back. So
Trust and Safety. Is that who you talk to? You got to talk to Trust and Safety.
Yeah, no, I talked to Trust and Safety. Yeah, no. And they said, we don't have a supervisor here right now. We'll have them call you back tomorrow. I said, I've heard this story a million times.
Yep.
You guys are not going to call back tomorrow. I'd like to speak to someone now. Well, we don't have anyone now. They'll call you tomorrow within 24 hours. No one calls. No one calls.
Now you're on double.
They just say that to get you off the phone.
Yeah.
You're on double secret probation now.
Yep.
Yeah. No, I know.
All right, we're going to head on into the final chapter of the show. If you got a couple of minutes, Tom, and we'll be all.
I'm here as long as you need me.
And this is quite the story. It's the rambling story of the week, and we're trying to get this out before Mr. Magazine passes out. So this was my Saturday. I got a little bit of bad news, and you're going to not like this news either, Dom. Papergoy, who you've met before, he unfortunately is in the ICU.
Oh, no.
He's got some heart issues going on. So I went back to Cleveland on Saturday to visit him. He was happy to see me, which tells me he's also delusional, but that's a whole nother story. So I drove back to Cleveland to see him. And, that was a little bit of a trying time. Now, we were leaving Sunday morning as well to come back here. Mrs. Papergoy and I were. So we visited him, went out to eat. All of a sudden, I get a text Saturday afternoon. Apparently, we had some storms up here, Mr. Magazine.
We did.
My neighbor texted me and said, uh, is your power out? Because you've got wires hanging. I said, what? And this was very, very frightening because the house across the street, as Mr. Magazine has seen, the gentleman had a tree branch fall on his power line, pull the things out of the, and make the two positives connect. Ended up a fire inside of his house. Took 3 months for him to get the power back on. And it's going to be 9 months total before he's able to move back into the house. Now I'm back in Cleveland being told that wires are hanging and things are out of the, are out of the house. So I'm a little bit worried about that. And of course, I'm 4 hours away. What can I do? So I ended up calling a random neighborhood kid. And what ended up happening was the neutral got pulled out. So the lights were on, but they were very, very dim the entire time. Well, meanwhile, again, I'm out of town. I'm calling, trying to find out what's going on, trying to text. And our local power company will say things like, your power is back on. Oh, great. So I call random neighborhood kid. Power's not on. What are they talking about? So then I call them. Well, you weren't supposed to get that text. Your power's not on. I'm like, well, thank you. So meanwhile, I'm far away trying to figure all this stuff out. So we drove over to the hotel. Don't you know, I was sitting at a light right in front of the hotel. We're sitting to pull in. I look at my rear view. This car is coming up on me, and I go, that car is coming up awfully fast right into the back of my car. And I'm going, could this day get any worse? So I go out, and the guy stopped. He gets out. He goes, I don't see any damage. And I looked, and actually, believe it or not, his bumper was just the right height that it didn't do any damage. It did damage to his front grill and stuff. And I'm like, yeah, have a good day.
That brings up a good point. I literally was just thinking about that. It was before the show. I went over to the gym and doing a workout. And as I was driving over there, I saw several lengths back, there was a big truck coming. And, I was thinking, I always got to make sure I tell my kids, because my kids starting to drive now. And this is also for everyone in the audience, because I see these types of accidents happen a lot through my type of work. People get hit a lot from rear-ended vehicles, and you just cannot assume that they're going to stop. So especially if it's a bigger vehicle, like an 18-wheeler or some type of much bigger vehicle than yours, if you have the option, try as soon as possible to move over to a different lane, because a lot of times people just not paying attention. This literally just happened the other day. A family of 3 plus 2 other people were killed because the driver wasn't paying attention. He got a TikTok message from his boss or something. He goes to check the TikTok, looks up, can't brake in time, smashes in front of a car in front of him. 3 people killed. That vehicle hits 2 other vehicles, and 2 other people were killed. And they're just, again, they're just not paying attention. So you're probably not going to make it through it if it's there's a big mismatch in size like that. So I always just try to move away.
Yeah, this gentleman was dressed up in a suit, and his girlfriend was wearing, well, she basically looked like a sausage shoved into a casing, but that's a whole nother story. I think they were on their way to some kind of a wedding or something other like that. So for all I know, it seemed like they might have been arguing, they were late, or where you going, or all that kind of, so they weren't paying attention, and again, hit that. And I'm just like, what am I going to do with the day I'm having? I don't really want to stand here. I don't see any damage. So then on the way back home, don't you know, my fan and air conditioning in the car go out. I said, you got to be kidding me. So I'm driving. That finally came back on. Get back home and get all that, and of course the AC is out. So that was my Saturday/Sunday. So
you're going through it, and I'm sorry. And shout out to Papa Papergoy. Give him a double tap from Prime Time. Tell him we hope he gets better over here, and we're wishing him.
Yeah, definitely will do so.
Wishing him good recovery.
Yeah, so that was a bad day, Mr. Magazine.
Yeah, I guess so. He didn't tell me a peep. He saved it for tonight.
Of course, that's the beauty of the show. Yeah. We do everything on air. Do it live.
That's right.
All right, we want to thank everybody for coming on out. We definitely want to thank Primetime Treasure Hunter for coming out. Absolutely. It was a lot of fun.
Thank you so much.
You imparted a lot of nuggets of wisdom, a lot more than we ever do. So if you ever want to take over the show, either one of us can move and you can sit here, but I'll make sure the air conditioning's up before you come on out. And I think the last question everybody wants to know is
when he's coming back, and we're not going to talk about whatnot next time, right?
Well, that one too. Yeah.
Well, yeah, and I should actually, I never clarified this. So, I paused my whatnot. I don't want to say that I permanently stopped. It may be permanent, but I'm not going back unless something significant changes with my ability, with an ability for me to reach a more consistent and larger end user base of the product, as opposed to, people who are looking to get it to flip it.
Yep. So I think the biggest question everybody has is how we live an hour apart from each other, and yet we never seem to get together, except in Madison Bachville, which is an hour away for you and 2 hours away from me.
We did.
We all got to get together.
We did. We will.
All right, everybody, hit the like button, and we will see you next video.
Take care.
All right. Thanks, everyone.
Take care. Bye bye.
It's
It's frozen. The mouse is frozen.
Good, turn it off then. You got to push on it.
I think we're still live.
Yeah, we're having a problem on our end. The video crashed on our thing too.
Okay.
Been a tough week. Thank you, Prime Time. We'll figure out how to go not live.
I think so. Your top right, you should have a thing that says "end live" or something.
Yeah.
I think he still left me on. Am I on? Is it just me? Is it just me? Hey everyone, it's Dom from the $1 Million Peddlers. Welcome to another new and exciting show. We're gonna have a blast here. I got my mermaid that just came in the mail the other day. This is a fan gift who shouted me out. So want to thank everyone sending all the mermaid stuff. So appreciate it. No, I know I'm still on. I don't want the $1 Million Peddlers to get mad at me for taking over their show. So just doing this is a little bit of a joke for just a couple moments. But anyway, it was great hanging out with everyone here tonight. And I will have an estate sale video coming out.